I stood frozen in the middle of the small church in Cedar Valley, Oregon, the town where I had spent my entire childhood. The black dress clinging to my thin frame, thinned from months of sleepless nights and endless worry, felt suffocating, as if even it resented me for my helplessness. In front of me, Mason's pristine white casket, my 8-year-old son, lay silently covered in white lilies, his favorite flowers. They were the only ones he had wanted to plant in the garden once he got better. A small, simple dream, forever unfinished. The heavy atmosphere of the funeral was filled with stifled sobs blending into the sound of prayers. I clenched my hands together tightly to stop myself from crying out loud. Outside, the wind rustled through the old oak trees, as if mourning for Mason, a child who never had the chance to grow up. Then, my phone vibrated softly in my purse. Part of me wanted to ignore it, but curiosity overtook the pain. I glanced at the screen. A strange message appeared, and the image it showed made my heart feel like it was being crushed. Nathan, my husband, was smiling brightly next to a blonde woman who couldn't have been older than 30. They were sitting by the beach, colorful cocktails in hand, the ocean waves and bright blue sky behind them. The message said only a few words. Genesis, I thought you should know what your husband is doing today. A caring friend. I froze. My hand gripped the phone so tightly my knuckles turned white. In my ear, my mother's whisper broke through. Genesis, you're shaking. You have to stay calm. Stay calm? How could I when the man who once promised we'd get through everything together was in Hawaii with his mistress while I was burying our only child? Whispers started to spread throughout the church. I could feel the mix of pity and curiosity in the eyes now fixed on me. In a small town like Cedar Valley, news traveled faster than the wind. Nathan's absence today would be the talk of the town for months, maybe even years. I stuffed the phone back into my purse and forced myself to stand tall. I couldn't let them see me break. I couldn't. A hand gently squeezed mine. My mother, Evelyn, her eyes red from crying but with a spark of anger. Don't worry, Genesis, I'll make sure that man pays for what he's done. I looked toward my mother-in-law, Martha. She stepped up beside me, her pale lipstick pressed tightly, her hand resting on my shoulder just firmly enough to make me uncomfortable. Genesis, Martha began, her voice sweet as sugar but cold as ice. Maybe you should take a look at yourself. If you had cared more, if you had put your son above everything else, Mason wouldn't have... I exhaled sharply, my chest tight as if I'd been splashed with ice water. Stop it, Martha, I interrupted, my voice shaking with fury. Don't think I'll let you blame me. You know how hard Mason fought. And Nathan, where was he when our son needed his father? She hesitated, her lips pressed into a thin line. But then she quickly regained her composure, shrugging as if what she'd said wasn't serious. We're all heartbroken, Genesis, don't let emotions take over. I turned away, not wanting to see that false concern any longer. That night, after everyone had left, I sat alone in Nathan's office. The pile of papers on his desk was strangely messy, so unlike his usual neatness. I didn't even know what I was looking for, but something pushed me to go through those stacks of documents. And then I found it. A folder labeled Life Insurance. Mason Thompson. My heart felt like it stopped as I read those words. My hands trembled as I opened it, the stark white pages showing cold, hard numbers. $1.5 million. Clearly written out, the original beneficiary. Genesis Thompson. My name had been scratched out in messy blue ink, replaced with Nathaniel Thompson. The date of the change was less than 3 weeks ago. I didn't know how long I sat there, staring at that file. The truth hit me like a storm. I had just lost my child, and now I realized I had also lost the man I once trusted most. The next morning, as I took Mason to the cemetery one last time, something urged me to dig deeper. Back in Nathan's office, I searched every drawer. Hidden beneath a stack of travel magazines was another file, shared property transfer. My name and Nathan's signature appeared together, but my signature was clearly forged. A lakeside cabin we had owned together was now listed as Nathan's separate property. And not just one, I counted at least 3 other properties that had once been ours, now transferred solely to him. As night fell, my phone vibrated, a message from an unknown number. We need to talk. Meet me at the coffee shop on Maple Street, Samantha. Samantha? My heart raced. That was the name I had seen in the emails Nathan had carelessly left open. The same name from the photo in Hawaii. I typed back, "Why should I trust you?" The reply came instantly. "Because Nathan lied to me too. He promised me everything, then disappeared. I have proof. You need to hear this." I looked out the window, the darkness outside swallowing the town. Part of me wanted to refuse, to pretend I didn't know. But then Mason's face appeared in my mind. Those clear eyes filled with hope, even in his final days. I couldn't turn away from the truth. I grabbed my coat, stuffed the insurance file into my bag, and stepped outside. The night wind was freezing, but it wasn't as cold as what I felt inside. Fear, fury, and a quiet resolve that grew stronger. I would find the truth, and this time, I wouldn't let anyone take away what belonged to Mason again. The coffee shop on Maple Street was quiet under the dim lights. I walked in, my eyes immediately finding Samantha sitting in a shadowed corner near the window. She looked nothing like the glamorous image from the Hawaii photo. Just a simple coat, blonde hair tied back, a tense face. In front of her was a cold cup of coffee and her phone, screen up on the table. I sat down across from her, my face showing my guard. Samantha looked at me, her eyes slightly red, but steady. "I'm not here to apologize," she began, her voice hoarse. "Nathan lied to me, just like he did to you, and I only saw it when it was too late." I folded my arms across my chest. "You said you have proof. I am listening." Samantha picked up her phone, scrolled quickly through messages and photos. She showed me pictures of Nathan at casinos in Las Vegas, messages begging loan sharks for more time, shady bank transactions, money withdrawn without a trace. "Amos owes almost $300,000, and he promised me we'd start a new life with Mason's insurance money." My throat tightened at my son's name. I scrolled through the screen, every word like a knife. Part of me wanted to throw the phone to the floor, but I gripped it tighter. "What else?" Samantha looked up, her eyes serious. "There's a recording. I overheard Nathan and his mother, Martha, arguing about the assets. They talked about your father." A chill ran down my spine. "My father?" She nodded, then opened a recording app. Nathan's voice came through, low but clear. "I think the old man doesn't even remember what day it is. We just need him to sign and it's done." Next came Martha's voice, cold as ice. "Genesis is busy with the funeral. This is the time. We have to act before she suspects anything." I set the phone on the table, my hands shaking with rage. My father, Henry, had been confused since Mason got sick, and they wouldn't leave him alone, using his weakest moment to their advantage. Samantha watched me quietly, then said softly, "I don't expect forgiveness, but I can't let them destroy anyone else. If you want to fight this, I'll help." I took a deep breath, fighting back the wave of emotion. "All right, but I need more. I need legal proof." Samantha's expression softened, signaling she understood. "I have a friend, used to be a paralegal, who can help check Nathan's transactions. What about you?" "I have Peter," I said, "our family's former lawyer. If anyone can untangle this mess, it's him." The next day, Samantha and I met Peter at his small office in the town center. A man in his 60s, neatly combed silver hair, thoughtful face, sharp eyes. He greeted us with a firm handshake. "Genesis, I've been worried about you. Now I see why." We laid out the files, the proof, the messages, the photos. Peter examined everything in silence. At last he flipped through an old folder on his desk and said quietly, "Nathan and Martha are more foolish than I thought. They forgot I kept the original trust paperwork Nathan's grandfather set up. The trust was for Mason, and Mason only—" My eyes widened. "What are you saying? Mason had a trust?" "Yes. Robert set it up when Mason was born. The trust protects Mason's assets from any scheme by Nathan's family. I reminded Nathan many times, but they always dodged the topic." Peter opened the folder, pointing to signatures and seals. All legal, all still valid. I stared at those pages, hope and fury mixing inside me. "What do we do next?" Peter squeezed my hand. "We'll help you take back what belongs to Mason. But Genesis, this is just the beginning." Outside, the rain began to fall, tapping softly on the roof of the old office. I knew the real storm of my life was about to begin. The confrontation took place at Peter's law office on a gray, rainy afternoon, the air so thick it was hard to breathe. I sat at the head of the long table, Samantha beside me, her face pale with tension, while Peter silently arranged the thick stack of documents we had spent a week gathering. Insurance files, photos, messages, bank transactions, and a copy of Mason's trust fund. The door swung open and Nathan walked in with his usual confident swagger, Martha and Robert following behind. They sat across from me, Nathan's gaze filled with mockery. "Genesis, are you really doing this? Bringing a crowd just to smear your own family?" I looked him straight in the eye, my voice calmer than I expected. "I just want the truth, and today everyone will see it." Peter turned on the projector, each piece of evidence appearing on the screen. Property transfer documents, altered insurance papers, photos of Nathan at casinos, the recording of Nathan and Martha plotting to exploit my father's illness. Each proof was like a blade cutting through the false mask they had built. I thought Nathan would get angry, or fall silent in defeat. But no. He folded his arms, leaned back in his chair, a faint smirk on his lips. "You think this is enough to bring me down?" He pulled a folder from his briefcase and tossed it on the table, papers scattering everywhere. "Read it, then tell me who's really destroying the family." I looked at Peter. He picked up the folder, flipped through it quickly, and his face turned pale. "Genesis is..." I grabbed it. Inside were financial reports, transfer slips, tax statements, all cleverly arranged to paint a picture of me and my mother laundering money through Mason's trust, with Peter helping us evade taxes for years. Every signature, every seal, looked disturbingly real. Nathan propped his chin on his hand, his voice as sweet as honey. "I bet, if the media or the tax office gets this, Peter's career will be over, your mother's reputation gone, and that house you're living in, you won't keep it." My hand clenched so tight under the table it went numb. I glanced at Martha. She shrugged, her eyes gleaming with triumph. Robert said nothing, just lowered his head like a helpless accomplice. Peter's voice was hoarse. "This is fabricated, I can prove it." Nathan laughed, the sound echoing through the room and chilling me to the bone. "So, you want to bet on who they'll believe? Some old lawyer with a pile of dusty files? Or documents with clear signatures, clean numbers, and legal form?" Samantha started to speak, but I signaled her to stay silent. The fury boiled inside me, but I knew if I lost control now, we'd truly fall. Nathan stood, gathering his fake papers back into his case. "I'm giving you one night to think it over. Either you sign the property transfer, drop the charges, or tomorrow I send all this to the press and the authorities. Believe me, I'll do it." I didn't respond. The door closed behind them, their footsteps echoing like hammers, pounding my heart. Peter slumped into his chair, his hands gripping his head. Samantha looked at me, her face white as a sheet. "They just set us up perfectly," Peter said, his voice choked. "We'll lose everything if we don't overturn this." I closed my eyes, took a deep breath, trying to calm the storm inside. Fear and fury wove into a new determination. We're not going to fall. There will be a way. There has to be. The rain had just stopped as I returned to my mother's house on the outskirts of Cedar Valley. The gray sky still cast a heavy gloom, but I didn't care anymore. Inside me, everything felt like a storm held back, ready to break loose. I opened the door, my wet shoes leaving marks on the worn tile floor. In the kitchen, my mother, Evelyn, was making tea, her face thoughtful, her hands steady as ever. She looked up when she saw me, her gaze reading my soul in a single instant. "You just faced them, didn't you?" A faint gesture was all I could manage, my voice hoarse with exhaustion. "Mom, we lost. Nathan, he has enough fake evidence to bury us all." Evelyn set the teapot down, pulled out a chair and sat across from me, her eyes flashing with a strength I hadn't seen in so long. "Genesis, listen to me. Do you really think I've been sitting out of this? I wasn't about to let them destroy our family." I stared at her, confused. She opened the drawer beneath the table and pulled out a thick folder tied with an old rubber band. "From the moment Nathan started neglecting Mason, I had my doubts. I hired someone to watch him, record him, and gather evidence. I didn't say anything because you already had enough pain with Mason." My hands trembled as I opened the folder. Inside were photos of Nathan meeting with loan sharks, copies of shady money transfers, recordings of Nathan and Martha's conversations. That old man's out of it. As long as Genesis is distracted with the boy, we'll grab all the assets before she figures it out. I gripped the papers tightly, the bitter taste of fury rising in my throat. Mom, why didn't you tell me sooner? She took my hand, her voice softening. Because I had to be sure everything was strong enough to protect you, and now it's time you knew the truth. She pushed back her chair, opened the cabinet, and brought out a small metal box. Inside were notarized document copies, my father's, Henry's clear signatures. Your father signed everything over to the trust for you and Mason before Nathan could do a thing. Do you remember that night, when your father was most clear? The night Mason was admitted for the last time. I remembered. That rare moment he looked at me with clear eyes, squeezed my hand and said, I'm still here to take care of you, Genesis. A small, knowing look crossed her face. That night I had him sign the papers with the lawyer and witnesses present. Everything was legal. Nathan thought he had won, but what he really has are worthless pieces of paper. I sank into the chair, tears welling up, not from sadness, but because a ray of hope had broken through the darkness. You saved me, you saved Mason. My mother shook her head, squeezing my hand tightly. No, Genesis. Your father is the one who saved this family. He always loved you and protected you in the way he could. I looked out the window where the first weak rays of sunlight began to break through the dark clouds. The battle wasn't over, but now I had a weapon. Oh, Mom, what do we do next? My mother pushed back her chair, resolve clear in her gaze. We take this evidence to where Nathan can't bribe or threaten anyone, the court and the authorities. And you have to be ready to face this. This isn't just for Mason, it's for you too. In that moment, I knew I was no longer alone. I knew this fight now had a stronger foundation than ever. That night, my mother's house suddenly felt like the battlefield that would decide everything. I sat in the living room, the light dim. On the table was the file my mother and Peter had worked so hard to compile, proof of the legal transfer of property into Mason's trust, recordings of Nathan and Martha plotting to steal it, and copies of Nathan's shady casino transactions. Samantha stood by the window, constantly glancing out as if waiting for something. The sound of a car stopping at the gate, then footsteps on the porch. The door flew open before I could react. Nathan stepped in, confident as ever, with Martha, his mother, behind him. Wearing her usual cold expression, Nathan threw a stack of papers onto the table, his voice hard. That's enough, Genesis. Sign this. Tonight. Transfer the property and this will all go away. I looked up, struggling to keep my voice calm. What property, Nathan? What do you think you still have left to take? Martha stepped forward, her voice sharp. Don't pretend to be strong. Everything's still in Nathan's name. You don't sign tonight and your family pays for it tomorrow. I looked her straight in the eye. Really? Then take a look at this. I signaled to Samantha. She pulled out her phone and hit play. Nathan's voice echoed in the room, chilling in the silence. Don't worry, Mom. Mason's insurance is the prize. Genesis doesn't suspect a thing. That money, that property, it'll all be ours. Then Martha's voice followed. As long as Genesis doesn't react in time, you handle the legal side, I'll deal with the bank. Nathan's face turned pale and Martha's eyes widened, darting around for an escape. Nathan tried to steady himself. You set me up? You can't use that against me. No court will believe you. I rose slowly, my voice steady. We don't need the court to believe it, Nathan. The people who need to believe it are standing right outside. At that moment, the door swung open again. 2 FBI agents and the town's sheriff entered, their badges glinting under the light. One agent spoke. Nathaniel Thompson, Martha Thompson, you are under arrest for suspected financial fraud, insurance fraud, and conspiracy to commit theft. Anything you say can be used in court. Nathan stepped back, the smugness in his eyes gone. Martha opened her mouth to protest, but the sheriff stepped forward and cuffed her before she could say a word, leaving her stunned. You don't have proof. This is a joke, Nathan shouted, struggling as the agents held him firmly. Samantha stepped forward, holding up a USB drive containing all the files, recordings, and documents we had prepared. Enough proof, she said, her voice ice cold. I looked at Nathan one last time, the man who had once been my husband, who once promised to protect our family, was now just a greedy, weak man. Martha, as she was led out the door, glanced back, her eyes filled with hatred, and defeat. The sheriff turned to me. Genesis, you and your family are safe. All the property has been legally transferred into the trust. They can't touch it anymore. I nodded, feeling as if a huge weight had finally lifted off my chest. The fury was gone. All that was left was relief and an unexpected peace. Samantha let out a breath and said quietly, "So, it's over." I looked out the window. The night was strangely calm. But I knew this wasn't truly the end. The fight to restore honor and rebuild our lives would be long, but at least I had protected Mason and what he loved most, family. The trial took place on a spring morning, when the gentle breeze had begun to carry the scent of lavender from the fields on the outskirts of Cedar Valley. The courtroom was packed, mostly with townspeople, the same people who had whispered behind my back at Mason's funeral, now sitting silently, watching every detail unfold. Nathan sat at the defendant's table, his gray suit wrinkled, his gaunt face stripped of the arrogant confidence he once had. Martha, his mother, wore her usual cold expression, but her eyes betrayed confusion, and Robert kept his head down, unable to meet anyone's gaze. Each piece of evidence was presented: forged documents, shady transactions, the recording of Nathan and Martha plotting to exploit my father's frailty and steal insurance money, the prosecutor concluded. These actions are not only fraud but a cruel betrayal of their own family. When the judge pronounced the sentence, the courtroom fell silent. Nathan and Martha were found guilty of financial fraud, conspiracy to steal assets, and insurance fraud, sentenced to many years in prison. Robert, at last, admitted his role as an accomplice but received a lighter sentence for fully cooperating and revealing the entire scheme. I sat there, gripping Mason's small teddy bear that I had brought with me, feeling no more anger, only emptiness mixed with relief that justice had been served. A week later, Peter, my mother, and I officially announced the use of Mason's trust fund. That money, nearly $3 million, was donated to Oregon's Pediatric Cancer Support Foundation, where Mason had been treated. The rest was set aside for struggling families in Cedar Valley, battling illness and poverty. I paused in front of the hospital, where a new sign read Mason Thompson Foundation, a light of hope for little hearts. My heart tight with emotion as I remembered my son's smile. I knew he would be proud. Samantha left town after the trial. One early morning, I found a letter placed at my door. "Genesis, we've both lost, but I believe you've found yourself and what truly matters. Thank you for giving me a chance to make things right. Live for Mason and for the children your foundation will help. I'm leaving, but I hope one day we'll meet again, when we're both truly at peace. Samantha." I folded the letter and kept it close, as a reminder. Samantha wasn't a friend, nor an enemy. She was simply a lost soul who found a bit of conscience in the end. Cedar Valley gradually returned to peace. The old gossip faded into memory, replaced by respect for my family. I was no longer the pitiful woman betrayed by her husband. I was a mother who had defended her son's honor, who had turned pain into action. One autumn morning, the Cedar Valley sky was strikingly blue. I held my father's hand as we slowly walked the stone path leading to the small cemetery on the south side of town. The crisp breeze carried the scent of fresh-cut grass and wildflowers. We stopped at Mason's grave. A white marble headstone engraved with soft letters I had chosen so carefully. I knelt down and placed a small gray stuffed bear at the base of the grave. The bear Mason had hugged throughout his months in the hospital. Worn and faded, to me it was the image of my son, the symbol of the brief childhood he left behind. "My love, today I'm not here to weep," I whispered, feeling strangely at peace. "I'm here to tell you that it's over. I've protected what you cherished most, our family." My father stood beside me, his fingers tracing the stone as if trying to etch it into his fading memory. Then he sat down next to me, his voice slow but clearer than most days. "Genesis, you're just like your mother. When she set out to protect this family, nothing could stop her. And you know, real love isn't always gentle. Sometimes it wears the face of courage." I looked up at him, my eyes stinging but a small smile on my lips. "Dad, you still remember?" A flicker of rare emotion lit his eyes as he looked at me. "I remember, and I remember, Mason once said he believed you were stronger than anyone." The breeze stirred the branches above, sending a few golden leaves to the grass below. I looked around and saw a small butterfly, its wings orange-yellow, settle on the edge of Mason's headstone. It fluttered softly, as if in greeting, then rose, circling us before disappearing into the endless sky. In that moment, the pain lifted. All I felt was a lightness, as if Mason had truly found peace, as if he was telling me I had done the right thing. I whispered to my father, "The real victory, Dad, isn't revenge. It's protecting the love that remains, the values Mason believed in." He squeezed my hand, nodding. For a moment, clarity made him look younger, stronger. "Mason is proud of you, Genesis, and so is his mother." We sat there for a long time, letting the autumn wind hum through the old trees. I closed my eyes, listening to my heartbeat, the heartbeat of someone who had let go of hatred and was ready to begin again. As the sun climbed higher, casting warm rays across the grass, I helped my father to his feet. "Let's go home, Dad. Today I'll make Mason's favorite dinner, apple pie and pumpkin soup." My father smiled, a gentle smile I hadn't seen in so long. "Good, because we must live and keep the good memories warm. Mason would love that." We turned to leave, leaving behind the white headstone, the little teddy bear, and the butterfly still flitting through the sunlight. I knew that even though my son was gone, Mason would always be here. In the breeze, in the sunlight, in the right choices I made. My steps were steadier than ever, and for the first time after the storm, I truly felt at peace. My story isn't just about fighting betrayal. It's about finding myself again after loss. I've learned that the greatest strength isn't in revenge, but in preserving the good and the love that remains. Mason taught me that with his innocence and courage. Now his trust fund helps hundreds of children, and my family has found peace again. Life goes on, but I've learned how to walk forward with pride and peace. What do you think of Genesis' journey and the choices she made? Share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to follow the channel for more meaningful and touching stories about family life.